You know that feeling when you snag a budget gaming laptop, only to realize a few weeks later that the frame can't keep up with a single new title, the screen looks washed out, and you're left staring at a choppy 30 frames per second mess. I've been there, and the regret that follows is why I always warn people to think twice before trading a few extra bucks for a cheap lookalike. The question with any high-end portable rig is whether it actually feels like a smarter buy or just another overpriced slab. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The MSI Stealth 16 AI Plus is trying to position itself as that smarter buy. It's not a flashy, neon-lit beast you'd see at a LAN party. It leans into a sleek charcoal finish, a minimalist aesthetic, and a promise that AI-driven tuning will keep performance humming without you constantly tweaking settings. That alone sets it apart from the cheaper, gaming laptops that simply throw a high-end GPU into a thin chassis and hope the cooling system can handle it. Let's start with the everyday scenario most gamers face. You finish a day of work, you fire up a game on the couch, and you want a crisp, immersive picture without having to squint at a grainy display. The Stealth 16 delivers a 16-inch QHD Plus OLED panel that hits 240 Hz. In practice, that means dark scenes in titles like *Control* or *Elden Ring* get deep, true black levels, and bright areas pop with vivid color. Because it's OLED, you're also seeing instant pixel response, which translates to almost zero motion blur in fast shooters. I tried a 20-minute session of *Valorant*, and the motion felt buttery, no ghosting, no lingering trails. For anyone who streams or records, that kind of visual fidelity on a laptop is rare. You get a picture you can actually be proud of when you pop it up on YouTube. The AI-powered performance layer is where the laptop tries to differentiate itself. MSI's Smart Access software monitors your workload and automatically adjusts power limits, fan curves, and even the GPU's ray tracing settings based on what you're doing. In my own use, I noticed the laptop staying relatively quiet during a long coding session, then ramping up fan speed almost imperceptibly when I switched to a 4K video render in DaVinci Resolve. It's not magic, there's still a fan whine at full load, but the transitions feel smoother than the aggressive, alarming profiles you get on many cheaper models, where the fans scream the moment you load a game. Now, let's talk about the hardware that actually powers those experiences. The Core Ultra 9386H paired with an RTX 5070 Ti gives you a lot of headroom. In benchmarks, you'll see 1080p ultra-high settings staying well above 100 frames per second, and even at QHD Plus you're typically hovering around 7080 frames per second in most modern titles. That's a huge step up from the budget laptops that still rely on older RTX 3060 or GTX 1660 chips and stumble under newer titles. The 32GB of DDR5 RAM and 1TB NVMe SSD also mean you won't be waiting on texture loads or fighting out-of-memory errors, which is something I've seen trip up many gamers who buy a high-end GPU, but skimp on RAM. But there are hidden trade-offs you need to know before you hand over your credit card. First, the battery life is realistic for a machine this powerful, roughly 23 hours of mixed use, and under a full gaming load you're looking at under an hour before you need to plug in. That's not a surprise, but it does mean you shouldn't expect to game on a plane or from a coffee shop outlet without a power brick. Second, the laptop's thickness is modest for an RTX 5070 Ti system, but the chassis still runs warm under sustained loads. The cooling solution uses a dual-fan setup with a vapor chamber, which keeps temperatures in the 80°C range during a 30-minute Cyberpunk 2077 marathon. It's manageable, but if you're planning marathon sessions in a hot room, you might need an external cooling pad. Who should actually consider buying this thing? If you're a serious PC gamer who travels, does a bit of creative work, and wants a machine that looks as professional in a coffee shop as it does in a dorm, the Stealth 16 hits a sweet spot. Content creators will appreciate the fast SSD and ample RAM for rendering, while the OLED screen gives color-critical work a reliable reference without needing an external monitor. The AI Performance Tuner also appeals to folks who don't want to spend hours fine-tuning every game's settings. On the other hand, if you're a budget-conscious player who's happy with 1080p 60Hz and can tolerate a bulkier chassis, you'll likely get a better price-to performance ratio by stepping down a tier. Also, if you prioritize absolute battery longevity for on-the-go gaming, you might look at a lighter, less power-hungry device. Let's break down the practical strengths in plain terms. The OLED display makes dark games look genuinely dark, which is a big win for immersion. The 240Hz refresh rate isn't just a marketing number, it feels real when you're dodging bullets in fast shooters. The AI-driven power.